and Panthers upcoming or ongoing offseason, as the case may be. Both teams already have made some moves, or at least have some moves lined up for when the new league year begins on March 17. The big question today, when that clock strikes 4:01 p.m. Eastern in just under 3 weeks, will the Seattle Seahawks immediately trade Russell Wilson to another team? The Athletic.com has a report that is worth reading. And the one thing that created the headline for me was this back and forth that occurred after they'd lost 2 games in a row. Russell Wilson had 7 turnovers in losses to the Bills and the Rams. They had a short week to get ready for the Cardinals on Thursday night. The Cardinals were coming off of the Hail Murray game. Russell Wilson, in a nutshell, wants to have more influence and control over how to fix the offense. He's got ideas on how to get it back to let Russ cook. It had been let Russ do anything but cook. Let Russ crockpot. Let Russ, you could put in 50 different words other than cook, and they ignored him. And he stormed out of the room. That seems like very un-Russell Wilson-like behavior. That caught my attention, Charean, and I have a feeling it caught the attention of Russell Wilson's camp and then set the stage for what came later in the day.
Yeah, no question about it, Mike. And we talk about the Seahawks having been quiet about this. Apparently they were very quiet about this. It's obvious all of this came from the Seahawks camp, and it looks like Russell Wilson has responded to the Seahawks respond. But, he made it public right after the season, Mike, about how frustrated he was with all of these things. He wanted a bigger say in personnel. He is frustrated by all the hits that he's taken, which is over 40 quarterback sacks in the last 8 years. That's just too many. And so he's really been banged around, and the fact that they haven't won a Super Bowl since his second season, haven't been there since his third season, 3-5 in the postseason since then. There's a lot of frustration, Mike, and it's all coming out right now. And the question is, what does this lead to? Does he go? I've always been in the camp that he'll be back there for one more year, and if they don't get to the Super Bowl, that's probably it. But now, after reading all this today, I'm not so sure he's back there this year, Mike.
Yeah, I think this thing is working toward a boil. And my big takeaway, beyond the factual scenario with him storming out of the room when he tried to get them to give him more influence over fixing the offense, I came down to this after I read all of it. Let me just say this real quickly about this concept of the ultra-long article. I don't want to make anybody any more upset than ordinarily do, but do the folks who write these things realize no one ever reads all of it? And that should cause the people, before they submit it for publication, to read back over it and see if there's a way to tighten it up. I don't think there's any automatic praise or glory in having so many words no one ever reads all of it. Because trust me, I never read. You get to a point where you shift from read to skim mode. And I'm always skimming for the stuff that I think would make for a good story that our audience would be interested in. But, Charean, whether it was this, whether it's the item The Athletic had last week on Deshaun Watson, whether it was that 10,000-word opus from ESPN on the NFLPA and the NFL that tracks back 10 years into topics no one cares about, I don't get it. And I'm sorry to take us off track, but I just don't get it. And I don't know what motivates this, because, frankly, The Athletic could have taken that story today and they could have crafted it into 6, 7 different news bombs that they could have dropped over the course of 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, no question, Mike. It's those long reads. People aren't reading them anymore. It's not the way it is. I love writing them. There's no question about that. I think they're fun to write. But when people don't read to the end, have you really had a good use of your time and a good use of your space? And probably not. I'm with you. They probably could have broken this one up into several different bites and posted those, and they would have gotten a lot more play out of this. But that's The Athletic, the way they do things, and it's the way they've always done things.
And they already have our money, so it doesn't matter. They can write as long as they want to write. But and I didn't mean to take us off track. I didn't mean to take us off track. But I don't get it when no one reads the whole article. I don't get it. Anyway, what happened later this afternoon, the stuff that people do read and digest, the tweets that come out in 280 words or fewer, that was where the response came from Russell Wilson, and it was on the record from his agent. And I'd love to know the sausage-making process that causes someone to say who they're going to talk on the record to. The agent chose Adam Schefter, and the the tweet from Schefter with information from Mark Rodgers was that, number one, Russell Wilson has not requested a trade. Now, we reported that a couple of weeks ago. He hasn't requested a trade. But at the same time, he wants to play for the Seahawks. But if he's going to be traded, here are the 4 teams to which he'd accept a trade, which makes it kind of hard to sell the idea he doesn't want to trade. Hey, I don't want to trade. I haven't demanded a trade. But in the event they choose to trade me, Cowboys, Raiders, Bears, Saints are the 4 teams for whom I would waive my no-trade clause. And what that does, and I have reason to believe that this is exactly what Mark Rodgers was trying to do, it lets those teams know you're the ones at the table. You're the ones who should be making the offers. Forget about the stories of a third of the league calling or teams trying to get the Seahawks' attention. No, put your best offer together, put it on the table, and there's reason for you to do it because it's down to you. You're the finalists. If you want in, get in. If you want out, get out. But those are the 4 teams. And go ahead and start the bidding, even though we officially aren't requesting a trade.
Yeah, Mike, that's exactly what it is. If you look at those 4 teams from the Seahawks standpoint, I mean, the Raiders obviously make the most sense to get him out of the NFC. I mean, you don't want to trade him to a team like the Cowboys that you're going to have to beat to get to the Super Bowl, right? That probably makes him better. Or the Bears or the Saints, any of those teams. Yeah, you just don't want to do that. So if they're going to trade him, and those are the only 4 teams he'll go to, then you start to look at the Raiders as the possibility from the Seahawks standpoint. And if one of those other teams wants to offer you way, way, way more than what the Raiders offer you, then you go back to the Raiders and say, all right, we really want to trade him with you to you. Here's what these other teams are offering. But to me, from the Seahawks standpoint, if you're going to do this, the Raiders absolutely make the most sense. But again, I think it comes down, Mike, to how do the Seahawks really feel about Russell Wilson? Do they see him as their long-term franchise quarterback? And if you do, then you are going to have to do some things that he wants you to do. And if you don't want to do those things, then it's obvious to me that you don't think he is your franchise quarterback who can lead you to multiple Super Bowls. So maybe it is time to move on and listen to some of these offers.
That's the litmus test. If you don't view Russell Wilson the way that Russell Wilson views Russell Wilson, then trade him to a team that does, because that team is going to give you more than what you would give someone else for him. It should get your attention. And that's where they need to tread lightly, Charean, because if they put out too much of this idea that maybe they don't think Russell Wilson is Patrick Mahomes in a different uniform, that's when one of these teams may say, well, you really don't view the guy as being all that special. And look, that won't matter if multiple teams come to the table, because that's the best way to do this. What Mark Rodgers did on Russell Wilson's behalf is what, frankly, David Mulugheta should do on Deshaun Watson's behalf. Announce the teams that Watson would play for. Then those teams know they're not wasting their time if they put together an offer, and it makes sense for them to press pause on whatever their quarterback plans may be. The Raiders intrigue me for one reason. The Raiders and Seahawks used to be in the same division, and they met in the playoffs in back-to-back years, including in an AFC championship game back in '83. The Raiders won that game and won the Super Bowl after that. But, you know, the Raiders would make sense because even though they say they're not trading Derek Carr, if an upgrade falls into their lap, they're taking it. The Cowboys, and Charean, the Cowboys are the team that I've consistently heard for more than a year. Anytime this issue comes up of Russell Wilson not being thrilled, the Cowboys. It's the Cowboys. I think he's got his eyes on the Cowboys. From Dallas's perspective, does it make any sense to pull the plug on Dak Prescott and put together a major trade package to get Russell Wilson?
I think Russell Wilson is an upgrade over Dak Prescott. I mean, you can't argue that point because Russell Wilson has the Super Bowl ring, right? And he doesn't have the injury problem that Dak Prescott has right now. He signed long-term. Dak Prescott isn't. For all those reasons, I think you say absolutely he's an upgrade on Dak Prescott. But Dak Prescott doesn't cost you anything except money to re-sign. If you're confident that ankle, and I don't know how you would know that, but if you're confident that ankle is going to be okay and he's going to be your franchise quarterback, he costs you nothing except for money, salary cap space. And I know that's important, but he's not going to cost you all those draft picks and everything else. This, to me, does not look like a team that's ready to win right now. And so how are you going to build around Russell Wilson on your team if you don't have all these draft picks? That's my only concern from a Cowboys standpoint. is trying to get better without the cap space and without the draft picks to try to improve a roster that to me is just not real good right now, aside from the weapons. The weapons are great. If I'm Russell Wilson, I want to go play perhaps with that offensive line if they can come back from those injuries, the big guys we talk about, Tyron Smith and Zach Martin. But I like the receivers too. Lyle Collins, I forgot him, but I like the receivers. But when you're looking at that defense and other parts of that team, I'm not so sure. When you're looking at the age of Tyron Smith and his injury history, I'm not so sure. So I would love to see, I'd love to see, and I know we can't, this would take all kinds of movement, but maybe it's Seahawks sign Dak Prescott in free agency and Russell Wilson is traded to the Cowboys. I would love to see Dak Prescott on the Seahawks, however that works out, and Russell Wilson on the Cowboys. I think it'd just be fun. It'd be fun to see those guys go at it for however many years.
Two things. First, we were 2 years too early for the night that we got to sit and listen to Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones, because tonight would be the night to be sitting at the table at Prime 47 and hearing what they have to say about this. Secondly, I don't think the Seahawks touch Dak Prescott. I think they backfill with a rookie or someone who's a hell of a lot cheaper, because unless they can get this trade delayed until June 2nd, they're taking a $39 million cap charge this year for Wilson in a year that has the cap dropping to 182, 183. Now, I think the trade would be official after June 1 to help the Seahawks, and it's a demand that the Seahawks easily can make. It's part of the price of admission. We're not finalizing the deal until June 2 because we want to take 13 this year and 26 next year. Even then, for what Prescott will cost on the open market, I think the Seahawks wouldn't jump into it, and the injury issue would be a factor as well. But, look, I agree with you. Russell Wilson's an upgrade. He's older, though. He's several years older, but he makes it clear he wants to play until he's 45. And I'm telling you, he has been eyeing the Cowboys for a while, at least since Mike McCarthy became the head coach of the team. And I think he understands the power of that platform, both as it relates to what it can do for you as a player and what it does for you. Not that Russell needs the help, given his personality, but look at what it does for you post-playing. You can just write your own ticket into any broadcast booth you want once you've had the star on your helmet. You can be a quarterback, you can be a tight end, you can be anyone, and you're in a great position to have a job in broadcasting. Michael Irvin, Emmitt Smith had his time in broadcasting. I mean, it gives you a much higher profile, and I think that's one of the reasons why Russell Wilson is interested. But he also wants to be at a place, Charean, where the offense runs through him. And I don't know, frankly, where that is going to happen from these four teams. Maybe in New Orleans, if they could work it out. Maybe the Raiders, maybe John Gruden. John Gruden's so happy to have a quarterback he can see eye to eye with and not have to get up on a step stool to talk to. He may be thrilled to do the deal just for that. But, look, Russell, that's the other thing to consider. Whatever it is that Russell wants, whoever trades for him had better be ready to give it to him, or you're just inheriting the problem the Seahawks have.
Yeah, there's no question about that, Mike. I would ask this, too, of the four teams. I mean, okay, does he want to win a championship? Like, of those four teams, I mean, New Orleans is the closest, but we know all the cap problems they have. They lost all their coaches in the offseason. I guess they're closest to a championship, and they saw what Tampa Bay was able to do, a team they beat twice in the regular season, once very convincingly. So maybe that's a team, but those other teams, I mean, does he upgrade them to the point where they're Super Bowl contenders? I don't know that. Maybe he does. Maybe that's all they need is the quarterback jumpstart. Maybe that's all Chicago needs is that quarterback they haven't had since, Sid Luckman maybe? But whatever the case, Mike, I just don't know from those teams' perspective that he's going to be, with what they're going to have to give up, that he's going to put them over the top.
I think the Saints are the most likely to be rocketed towards Super Bowl contention because they're already almost there. And they were almost there for the last 4 years with Drew Brees. You put Russell Wilson on the field as the quarterback and all the things he can do and all the things that Sean Payton will do to put him in a position to be successful and all the scouring that Payton does of all the different ideas and trends and plays and concepts and things to get the most out of his players. I think that would be a perfect destination from the standpoint of winning football games and pursuing championships. It wouldn't be easy at first because you're following Drew Brees, but once you get to a Super Bowl, the fans down there will warm up to the idea of having Russell Wilson around for 10 years or longer. assuming he ends up finishing his career with his second team. But, it was a year and a half ago that I said I believe Russell Wilson will finish his career with another team, and people went nuts. This has been coming. This is not a new development. It's just finally at the front burner. And the question for the Seahawks is, do they deal with it now, or do they give it a year and hope that they can fix it? But either way, something is looming, because within 2 years, Mark Rodgers is going to want Russell Wilson's next new contract. And I think the Seahawks are going to be at the point where they're not going to want to give him that kind of money. And I think when the market value, because it's $45 million now, but I think once the Seahawks process all this, they're going to realize somebody's going to put an offer on the table that is going to make sense for them, given the current state of the relationship with Russell Wilson, especially now that we're hearing more about the dirty laundry.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.